We're gonna make some business decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. College football's on fire right now.
It is.
And this is before the big weekend, which is next weekend, is the can't miss weekend
Right.
for everybody else who didn't play this
Right.
weekend.
This weekend. Right.
And you know what? I give my hats off to that guy. I told you about Sean that was talking about Arkansas. That was like, hey, they should be 5-0. Because he
Right.
called it. He
Right.
called it.
Right. If you look at it, it's like, whoa, wait a minute now. Hmm.
Yeah, I looked at him sideways. I was like, I don't know about that. And sure enough, but it just to me it seemed like, and we're live. Welcome in everybody. We just chatting it up today, giving our week 6 review. But we sitting here talking about the Tennessee Arkansas just to chat it up. But it just seemed like a lot of teams that were coming off of the bye this week just kind of fell flat, in my opinion. Like they just weren't ready to play, thought maybe, hey, what was going on in the early part of the season was just going to continue to roll on as needed. And Tennessee was one of them. But I mean, I'm pretty sure we want to dive into the big one, which was the Bama and Vandy. Vandy has joined the SEC.
Finally.
Good Lord. I don't know. Y'all are the two fans. So I'm gonna let y'all kind of kick it off. If you say what y'all gotta say, I'll kind
Go
of
ahead,
just
Drew.
butt in as I can. But
I
you
got a lot
talking
of I got a lot to
crazy.
say about this game, and I'm not gonna say all in one setting, but one thing I was really thankful for, I was thankful that it wasn't Nick Saban. That's my biggest takeaway from it. I was like, if this would have happened last year to Nick Saban, I think I would have truly been devastated as a human being seeing that happen on his record. But for Debo as a reputation, it's embarrassing, my man. It's embarrassing. I'm really even skeptical about calling you Debo. But at the same time, Sean, I was thinking yesterday when I was debating about stripping the nickname away from him, I was like, well, what is Debo famous for? Getting knocked out. That's what happened last night. He got knocked out. And I was like, watching the game, I was like, I was never really like too honed in on it. I was kind of always like, well, Vandy got up quick. I was at the laundromat washing some blankets or something. I was like, Vandy got up quick, whatever. We're gonna come back and storm. And I was like, well, never mind. The play clock, I mean, the game clock is kind of they soaking it up. And I was like, all right, cool. Bama's still making big plays, but it's certain mistakes that I thought would happen earlier in the season more often kept happening in this game. And I was just like, Bama just kept shooting themselves in the leg at the wrong moments to where Vandy could just get the ball and soak it up in the first half. Second half turned out to be perfect. I thought everything happened exactly how I thought it would be in the second half, except for a blindside hit on a whiff block. And I was just like, okay, that might be the end of it all. And it was still a lot of stuff going up all the way to the end, but that type of offense that Vandy was running, our defense looking like they didn't know what they was doing. People didn't know how to tackle. People just not being in position. I told him right before we went live, I said, I don't think it needs to be anybody like type firing situation. I think just people need to be benched for a week and just humble themselves and say, okay, cool, you're not who you really think you are because you're making these mistakes. And the mistakes are things that can't be fixed. They can be fixed easily. It's just communication. It's kind of like I think I know where my guy's gonna be at, but we're not on the same page, and now we blowing a 20-yard game. So I think it's really interesting the whole dynamic of this Bama team. But if this was last year, this loss would be so much more devastating because of the totality of the loss. Yes, it's devastating because of who is to. I can't believe I got to give Vandy respect for the rest of the season now. I mean, that's going to be something that's going to be tough for me deep inside my heart. People that know me as a Bama fan, just the comments that can come at me is, I don't want to deal with it. But I still see this season turn out the way we're supposed to be turned out, and it's just not going to be undefeated. So keep on rolling. Let's see what you got to say, Sean.
Yeah, man. The when I'm watching this game as a typical Bama fan, after Vanderbilt marched down the field and scored a touchdown, I said to myself, this is not a typical Vanderbilt drive. You know what I'm saying? Like I could tell something different was at play here. And I don't necessarily know if it's something that they saw on film, a weakness in Bama's defense, or whether it was just, hey, this is what our scheme is, and this is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna just run it down your throat until you can stop it. But my takeaways was Vanderbilt came to play. Okay. And don't get me wrong, Vanderbilt has come to play every time they play Alabama. It just don't really mean much when they do. You know what I mean? But when Milroe had the tip ball that went for a pick six, I'm like, okay. I was still like, cool, we're fine. And then we came back and scored a touchdown, and but Vanderbilt just was not gonna die. They didn't let it go. And I'm gonna start all this by giving Vanderbilt props because they obviously came to play. They were at home in an away game, essentially. They controlled this game from the beginning all the way to the end, which is something that like you just never really see happen to an Alabama team, almost regardless of who's coaching it. You know what I'm saying? You just don't see it. But the truth of the matter is the past 6 quarters that Alabama's played has looked the same, and it has not looked good. 6 quarters. The second half of the Georgia game and all 4 quarters of this Vanderbilt game, they just look discombobulated and, like you said, Drew, out of position. They're not tackling. It seems like the players are running the team. This is what Debo has to take care of ASAP. He doesn't necessarily have to get into his playbook and say, hey, we got to make this change, that change. I do think that they've got to do a better job of making halftime adjustments. Nick Saban was one of the, I don't want to keep on harping on Saban or a comparison, but one thing that we have to now, because one thing that Saban did a great job of throughout his entire career was making halftime adjustments. He was the best coach at making adjustments at halftime. I don't see any adjustments coming out of Tuscaloosa right now. None whatsoever. The same team that lined up in the first half of the second half of the Georgia game with the same team that came out in the first half of the Vanderbilt game, and the same team that came out in the first half of the Vanderbilt game was the same team that came out in the second half of the Vanderbilt game. And it is a very disturbing trend, and I can only take it to coaching. And they gotta figure it. They gotta fix it. I know they have adjustments. I've talked about Debo holding things and kind of keeping things close to the vest. Yesterday was not the time to do that, But but at the same time, I'm going to give Vanderbilt credit. Vanderbilt was everywhere Jalen Milroe wanted to go, running the ball. Their defensive backs were everywhere Jalen Milroe wanted to throw the ball. Now, yes, you're going to get off because you have superior talent, but this was a clear case of David and Goliath, and Vanderbilt was just not going to be denied last night. And them goalposts ended up in the Cumberland River, man. You know what I'm saying? The fire department had to come get the goalposts out and say, hey, we got to put them back up because, we're going to get fined because we rushed the field and everything, but I got to get the goalposts back up for the next game. To be a Vanderbilt fan right now is probably the best feeling in the world, and I'm going to let them have it. We ain't got no choice but to let them have it. But this rests on Alabama's shoulders, if you ask me, and what they did not do to take care of this game and even win the game. We got to a point where we're talking about how far Bama was going to fall if they won. You know what I'm saying? Even if they won the game, they wouldn't finna be the number 1 team in the country. They're not the number 1 team in the country the way they're playing right now, and it's obvious. And every team loses a game, maybe not like this, but every championship team loses a game during the season. I'm just curious as to whether or not the coaching staff at Alabama, Kalen DeBoer, how they're going to pick these boys up, because you got Carolina coming in, and both of them are a little wounded. And if Bama is not, if they come out the same way they came out yesterday against Carolina, we could be looking at another loss. Now, Vanderbilt, real quick. I made the comment a few podcasts ago. Vanderbilt's season was going to be determined on what happened in the Bama-Georgia game. What I meant by that was if Bama beat Georgia, there was a good chance that Vanderbilt was going to be able to hang with Bama, because I just had a feeling that when Bama beat Georgia, they were going to come out flat regardless. I did not think Vanderbilt had enough to overcome that, but they obviously did, man. And mad props to Vandy and all 15 of their fans. I'm still not bought in. I think they were just legitimately, they had the game plan. Bama was not able to adjust, and it sucks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I'll say something real quick, and it's another thing, and this is what Saban, and I'm like we just said, we don't want to keep going back to them, but Saban had a
I
good
will.
philosophy.
Saban ain't taking this type of loss.
I know, but I'm just
Nah.
saying, like, he wouldn't
Happy
have
all day
let the
long.
team sink into this mindset. And I think all that game was just a mindset. You beat Georgia. You handed it to Georgia in the whole first half of that game. Yeah, they came back in the second half, but that's Georgia. You chalk it up to, oh, they're talented, so on and so forth. But I think everybody in that locker room kind of took all the praise that was happening from that game and just said, hey, we going to Vandy. We ain't got to really show. We just got to be at the game, and we're gonna get our W. And then it's a perfect storm, like you said, Sean. It's the perfect storm that they were going to feel like they had a chance, especially how they were playing earlier in this season. And then you're coming off of the game against Mizzou, who's a top 10 team, and we'll get into them in a minute. They completely fell on they face in A&M. But is if you kind of figure out as a coaching staff, you got to figure out how do you keep your guys motivated into keeping your foot on the pedal, no matter who the opponent is, no matter what game it is, and no matter what your situations are. Because, like you said, y'all still making plays, you still kind of in the game. You never feel like the game was over until the very end of that football game. But at the same time, you let a team like that stay around and get motivation throughout the entirety of a game, especially late into the fourth quarter. Anybody can surprise anybody on any given Saturday. So I think it's got to come down to how do you get them refocused and get them back into the mindset of saying, hey, we're Bama, we got to be dominant. Can we take what we did in the first half against Georgia and apply it to every single quarter of every single game for the rest of the season? Will this be a wake-up call, or is this going to be a lingering kind of issue going forward into these smaller opponents that are coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, I think there's two big things that happen in this game that I don't think it's really too much that you can really take away from it. I think it's kind of just fix it and get more improved from it. But I think it's more in the first half of the Georgia game. I think an ego switch got turned on from the defense. I think it was a complete ego switch. And from there on, Kalen DeBoer lost the message of we're not a team who can just show up and win as a defense. But that's what happened in the Georgia game. They showed up and they just won as a defense, just dominating all cylinders. So in the second half, they just felt like if they showed up in the second half, they was going to be able to win. Georgia got a game plan together to go down there and score against Bama. I think that was something that Vandy took note of to the extreme and put their own identity into it. To where a team that's up big 14 early is going to be already, I don't care who you are in the SEC, it's going to be tough to come back from. Then you got a defense who I feel like they're so close to making the play, they're just not giving enough effort to make it. And it's so frustrating when you watch it on TV. It's because I mean, I'm watching it yesterday, and it's like, all right, cool. It's a 3-yard run. We got them wrapped up, and we don't finish the play, and next thing was a 6-yard game. We got them to a third down and 4 yards, but we don't finish the drive and get off third down. We get them to a fourth down where they punt us the ball where we can take the lead, and we got 2 number 2s on the field. Like, to me, that's coaching involved, but it's also players that's really not just taking advantage of the opportunity. Nick Saban always made sure players understood what they was going to be facing when it comes to a game. There were certain games he just was not going to lose. He would talk about rat poison all the time, and that's exactly what we walked into, Sean. You predicted it. Vandy was the perfect rat poison. And if you've watched Vandy, and they've had a couple early games where I've kind of taken a note of them. I haven't watched full games, but they know their identity. And they got a
Mm-hmm.
young running back who really knows how to hit the hole hard. So if you're not really coming in there padded up, he's gonna bump you to the next to the next level. And you got a quarterback who's confident. They said before the game, he watches Johnny Manziel highlights and his own
Yeah.
highlights before the game. I was like, hey, that's a bad boy. That's a bad boy. That's exactly what I would do. Watch a famous person who made something big happen. And that's what he did. Extend plays just an extra little bit, made Bama's players just a tad second too late to him, and he got the ball off. I was watching that fourth down play, and it was nothing but just heroic lob in the air. And I was like, man, it was just some game-breaking moments where, Sean, you can contest to this. Being a Bama fan, but as long as you've been a Bama fan, you just seen certain games that just would not click over. And I don't know what it is, but that's what I thought of yesterday. I was just like, man, I thought all the way up into that fumble, that sack fumble, that we was going to come back and win. But when I saw that sack fumble, I was just like, yeah, they're going to juice this clock. We need 2 possessions. They're gonna juice this clock, man. They did perfect. Same thing with no switch of subjects, but Tennessee and Arkansas. Man, had an identity to take the clock down and got it upset, man.
Yeah, to end on Bama, it hopefully it's a situation to where Kalen DeBoer, looks in the mirror because he has to be thinking to himself, you know, go back to the USF game. That was a little dicey. You know, you know, uh, uh, you know, they just I don't think they're hungry enough. They weren't hungry enough yesterday to get it done. Talented enough, yes. We're talking about Vanderbilt. Okay. Um, they walked into a buzzsaw and they just got beat. It's like you said, Drew, bench a couple of players. Malachi Moore, man, sit down for a minute. Sit
Yeah.
down. You showed your ass. Like a kid that got his blow pop taken from him. You know what I'm saying? It's like you can't do that.
And my thing is, what you so mad for?
Why?
Why are you so mad? If I remember, when that dude making an amazing catch in the end zone, number 13 was on the field getting burnt on a 4th and 1.
Right.
Where we stopped the play, he throws a Hail Mary up to the end zone, and Malachi didn't even try to cover the guy down the field. And I'm just like, okay, cool. You've been here for 5 years. Hey, I got one memorable play from you in your freshman year. You made a pick on the sideline. If you ain't showed it by now, you need to sit your ass down. I'm sorry to say it like that, but we got other guys as young guys that they need coaching up a little bit, but they don't give effort. Like Sabian Brown got targeted 10 times in the Georgia game. Yes, he got burnt a couple times. He gave a couple plays, but he makes one of the biggest plays efforts in late game in the situation. That's what I'm looking for in Bama. Keon Sabb, wherever the hell you came from, you need to sit the hell down. I'm so tired of seeing number 3 on the negative end of a play. And like we got to get going. Devontae Smith is a great leader point. We got Dante Law is a great leader point. We got linebackers a great leader point, but they just got to get in the right position. Miss gaps, tackling. I'm just like, dude, this is the Pac-12.
Yeah. Man, listen, and I'm gonna tell you this right now. I am sick and tired of seeing 4 down linemen and a single high safety.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like every time I see it, I'm like, dang, this is the offensive coordinator's dream.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like you're and listen, it could be that Warmack or whatever the defensive coordinator is, whatever the name is, he's trying to get it because listen, the corners at times they look fantastic, but you just can't let teams continue to take shots downfield. And they're basically asking teams to take shots downfield. Well, what happened in this game was you still ran a single high safety, 4 down linemen. They went very untraditional in their offensive run game. It was almost like a wishbone type of situation. Option, triple option. They threw a lot at the front 7. But they also took shots. And I just think that at some point in time, you got to go to a Tampa 2. You got to go to a cover 2, cover 3 at least. You got to do something to make them not want to throw the ball deep, but you still have the ability to stop the run. And he didn't do it last week against Georgia. He stayed in single high, and that's when Carson Beck went off. He for some reason Carson Beck couldn't do it in the first half. They made an adjustment, and he was able to get off in the second half, and Vanderbilt just picked up on the same thing that Georgia left off with in their game with no adjustments from the defense. I think that's what frustrates me the most. It's like all you got to do is just put another safety back there and still play defense. You can still put 4 down linemen back there and still have your linebackers and 2 safeties back, and you're avoiding some of this stuff. But with this single high safety, with this run game they had going on, it was a perfect storm, man. We had zero resistance to it, and we didn't adjust at all. Like I said, I'm over it now, but it's just like defensively, we just got to do better. How about adding a second safety at some point in time?
And I'll tell you exactly what it is. I think it's the fact that in the first half of the Georgia game, you had that look, but you was getting the pressure that you needed with the front 7. And I feel like it's the moment of you're stuck in the what do I do moment. I got guys that I know deep in my heart that can make the play, but they're not making it. So if I stick with it just for another drive, they're gonna make the play. And I mean, just to be honest with you, there were so many times we got there. We got them in 16 different third down situations. Bama is just known for winning more of those than we lost, and that was the totally only difference. And they get to bleed down the clock. They got 42 minutes worth of game time out of a 60-minute game. Bama didn't really have time to put the comeback. That's why I don't think it's that big of a deal. That's why it just hurts name-wise saying that, oh, snap, the number one team in the country, Bama, lost to Vandy. It hurts more than what actually happened on the field. Because if you could just fix a little bit of these things, I think the offense, besides a couple penalty-wise, looked great. Jalen Milroe got roughed up. He got rattled a couple times, but overall he reacted great without throwing too many interceptions aside for the batted ball, which sometimes as a killer quarterback, you just can't help. It just happens sometimes. Plays don't go your way. But overall, as a team, the way they fought back, the way they came back in a roar, I think everything happened. Just a one mixed tackle by the offensive lineman, changed the momentum of the game. Vandy had 9 minutes and went on two drives that just milked the clock. That just milked the clock. And this is one of those things where it just happens that way to set up for a loss. But to continue forward, getting this done, I think if you fix some of the defensive issues, it doesn't even have to be everything. I think, Sean, we're going to have to live with some of this stuff that's going to happen. We're going to see this year when it comes to this defensive staff. But I think if you put 6 more weeks ahead of you, give them 16 third down situations, I think for the majority of the season, Bama wins more than they lose those. And I think that's something that we got to say where that can be a positive for going forward. We got to get ourselves right. We got to say, okay, cool. We got to play with our heart that we know we got. And I think that's something that's got to come out. The NIL money getting to people's heads. This that swagger, that spoiledness, beating Georgia got to a lot of people's heads, and we got smacked in the face. And I'm not trying to harp on Bama all night because I am over it. I think it's going to be a great game next weekend. But for us to get past this one, we got to understand that if we fix us, this will never happen.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, there was other games that went on also that was crazy. You got the Tennessee game, losing on the road at Arkansas. Georgia struggled in the first half with Auburn, ended up pulling that one out. You got Miami, who came back from 25 down to win their game, and then Mizzou just gets absolutely slammed at A&M, which I'm telling you, it's that environment going to A&M. It don't matter noon, afternoon, nighttime at that Aggie Stadium with that 12 man. That's a crazy environment to try to go win in. It is truly wild. Any other things y'all want to harp on from this past weekend?
I'll say Tennessee, Arkansas real quick, just because it's the top five team. Top five
Yeah.
team losing to an unranked
And where
opponent.
and where did they drop to?
I want to say 8, 9.
Right behind Bama.
Yeah.
Right behind Bama.
I know that it came out earlier, but yeah. So that game was crazy from the standpoint of I'm keeping track of it because by that time, I was leaving the Carolina game, and we were seeing that Tennessee didn't score in the first half. They came out of halftime, scored 2 touchdowns to go up 14 to what was it? It wasn't 14 to 14-3. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after that, it just seemed like Arkansas just kept always just stayed in the fight. Another kind of game, kind of like the Vandy game. Just stay in the fight long enough. Don't get too discouraged by the score or anything like that. And then chip away at the lead. And then at the end, just go down and do what you got to do. But this is one of the teams that I saw and a little bit I did see from the game, and it just seemed like they came out of the bye week walking into this environment like, oh, we a top 5 team, everybody's harping on us as oh we're finally back to what we looked like 2 seasons ago. We're ready to make our case as a not only a potential playoff team, but a SEC contender, and just fell flat. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves in this game. You ran the ball fairly well, but you got more yards rushing than you did passing. And it just seemed like you could never just land that. And kudos to Sam Pittman for keeping this team motivated through this season, because we were speaking about it before. We had a guy last week was saying his Arkansas team should be 5-0 heading into this game. But yeah, it's just another one of these crazy outcomes this weekend that just like, hey,
Hey,
this is gonna linger for a minute with these
I tell
fans.
you this though, I actually watched some of this game, and I think what
Uh,
happened in this game right here is Tennessee got hit with the clock, and I think Arkansas went on a 9-minute drive to start the game off with with just soaking up the first half. So when
Yeah.
Tennessee got that touchdown, it was basically halftime. Second touchdown is middle of third quarter, and then they let Arkansas get momentum. And it was
Yeah.
just something like it was just like Tennessee just couldn't react to it. And I'm like thinking of all these upsets that happened over the weekend. I'm like, which one impacts a team the most? I think this one might impact Tennessee more than anybody that lost yesterday.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because you still got some heavy hitters on your schedule, and you can't afford no loss like this, and you let a young quarterback confidence get a little tag to it. And I was just like, it's just something I feel like this, like you said, Sean. I don't know how Bama can rebound from this. I don't know how Tennessee can rebound from this. Because it's really like a slap in the face. Like, and I heard a stat that Tennessee hasn't won in Arkansas in like 20 something attempts. And I'm
Yeah,
just
it's crazy.
like,
They put out a video today talking about each all the years that they came to Arkansas and lost. Yeah.
and I was just like, oh my gosh, for the totality of a season, I was just like, Tennessee, I'm just like, I have high hopes on you. I really do. I want you to bounce back. I think you could beat teams, but I think for a defensive side, they got exposed. I think for a defense, they really got exposed with toughness, and that I think that's something that's gonna last longer than what it should. But outside of that one, I think Miami, I think they're the real deal. Not championship wise, but I think they're the top ACC team. I
Yeah.
think they're a playoff contender, and I think they're gonna win a playoff game.
Yeah.
And what this means for the ACC, we'll jump to Miami. We'll jump back. I'm going to get back to Arkansas, but I think they may get two teams in. Clemson is they crept their way in. If it ends up being Clemson and Miami for the ACC championship game, I think there's a case for the loser of that game if they continue to win, which I see no reason why they would not continue to win based on the weakness of the conference that they end up getting two in. But I going to Arkansas, Sam Pittman has been, I've been vocal here with my praise for Sam Pittman as a head coach. It hadn't always looked like it on the field, but I think Sam Pittman is a really good head coach, and I think he's a good coach for Arkansas. I think he wants to be at Arkansas. I think Arkansas wants him, and as long as they leave Sam Pittman alone, eventually he's gonna figure it out, and they are gonna become a decently consistent team in the Southeastern in the new Southeastern Conference. Um, they took a similar approach to Vanderbilt. In the fact to say, hey, we're gonna control time of possession. You know what I'm saying? These are very, very simple concepts. And when you're coaching football, I always say it. I coach flag football. The clock is your friend. If you get a lead, you do everything you possibly can to protect that lead. That's what Vanderbilt did, and that's exactly what Sam Pittman did at Arkansas. You know Tennessee's coming, but what you do is you start getting excited about making them punt, getting your defense off the field. This is old school football type stuff. That the new age hadn't really, we left that, so we left defensive football. We're way past, we're trying to run 85, 90 plays a game. We're trying to tire the defense out. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to do this and that nowadays. But what happens when you run into a team that can run the football and control the clock and force you into making a mistake or two and keeping it close at the end? It's old school. This is not going to work every week, but if it works for you in whatever week you're trying to employ this strategy, regardless of who your opponent is, if if you were undermatched, this is exactly the strategy that you have to employ. Vanderbilt did it, and so did Arkansas. It works if you got the right mentality. That ain't gonna work all. If Bama plays Vanderbilt tomorrow, if Tennessee plays Arkansas tomorrow, we're probably looking at two completely different scenarios. But what happened yesterday was these two teams that got old school coaches, obviously based on how they played the game, went up against, you got an old school coach against new school coach. Old school won, man. Old school won. And it doesn't hurt the fact that old school actually has a little more talent than they normally would prior to the transfer portal and NIL. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? I go and look at Vanderbilt's quarterback's path to where he is today. He's the most talked about quarterback in the country right now. But he was completely unrecruited out of high school, had to go to junior college, went from junior college to New Mexico State, right? He obviously had talent because he was good enough to get recruited by SEC team in Vanderbilt. Now he's at Vanderbilt, and he did what he did last night. He's the hottest quarterback in the country right now, and he didn't even have an offer out of high school. This is the effects of NIL and the transfer portal. So we're gonna continue to see this. This is college football. This is the new college football. It's brand new. You know what I'm saying? Any one game, anybody can beat anybody. And I think these coaches have to really understand that. Hey, I don't care who we playing. You know, ain't no layups no more. You got to get ready, not just because of conference realignment and these conferences are getting tougher. It ain't just that. These cupcakes that you schedule now that used to be cupcakes that you knew you're gonna walk over and get a free win. It's not gonna be that no more. You know what I'm saying? You talk about in conference now. Man, look, some of these cats have been trying to get into the SEC for a long time, trying to get into the Big Ten for a long time. Some of these kids I'm talking about, they never had a shot because they weren't recruited by these schools. But now you ain't got to get recruited by Ohio State to end up at Ohio State. You know what I'm saying? These cats that were not recruited by these big schools that end up there, they're ballers that were just not necessarily recognized in their initial recruitment, but they were ballers from the beginning. So, man, again, it's very exciting. The world of college football, like I said, conference realignment, NIL, and transfer portal is we see it today, completely changing the face of college football. I like it. I don't like it. You know, we'll see. But it's definitely taking the parity in making college football almost NFL like.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's gonna happen.
One quick point about Vandy's quarterback at New Mexico State last year had the upset of the year at Auburn. Had upset of the year at Auburn last year.
Sure did.
Transferred to Vandy, has upset of the year this year against Bama, has those two back-to-back seasons. So all that to say, you get a guy that comes into your organization that has confidence in your game plan that can go and beat these type of teams because it says, hey, what do we got to lose? You have a couple of chips fall your way, and that's how things happen. I think that happened for Vandy yesterday, happened for Arkansas yesterday, happened for some of these teams that lost yesterday in Minnesota, having to win a turnover battle in that type of game like that. You got to think that these teams have these things fall their way, and all they got to do is just play their ball. They say, look, they got to come get us. They got to play a perfect game to come back on us. And Arkansas granted them, they had the comeback victory and had the quarterback swap that another guy that's off the bench that had the confidence to just go in there and just ball out. And I was like, okay, cool. That's what you kind of see in this type of atmosphere is you got guys that's trying to prove themselves. I saw stats last week after the Georgia game of Ryan Williams' NIL deal money doubling after his performance. Think about the same guy from Vandy. His NIL money doubles. His family changes now because of who he is as a quarterback, who he can transfer to, how he can grind, get to the position today. So you got to think, okay, cool. Like you said, Sean, I might not be recruited by Bama out of high school. I might not be coming as Bama as a pipeline quarterback, getting a chance to start in my third year, or a freshman at Carolina that can start my freshman year as a quarterback like that. I might be a guy that has to grind it, has to start places, has to be efficient, has to get tape and film, even if it's practice reps. You got to think if you're a backup quarterback at a school, you're going against starters. You can say, all right, cool, I can shot myself on the offseason and transport time and get to a position where I can fight for a starting job. And now you have a big moment like this, man, that's going to change your life. And I can't, for the totality of it, Vandy's season might flop. But this quarterback's going to be able to do something with himself because of this moment and say, all right, cool. Everybody got to live that moment and we're off to the next thing. So for Arkansas, you got a quarterback that's like, all right, cool. We got two quarterbacks fighting this game and go ahead and make a big win against the number 4 team. And it's like, man, you see these kids that's really got all the confidence in the world ready for these moments and saying, look, I got my crowd behind my back. If anything goes bad, we in this together. So they got here and go get a big win. So we got a lot to focus in on for the totality of this. I think Bama's going to be fine. I think they're going to be good as long as they can just keep their mind straight. I think USC out of a loss that they took, the Ole Miss have really got to figure out their identity. And I think, Sean, you mentioned Clemson for a quick second about the ACC. I think Clemson has an issue.
They don't play nobody, man.
I
They ain't got
think Clemson
nobody
has
on
an
their
issue.
schedule. They ain't gonna see nobody to the ACC championship game.
I don't
They
like
don't
Cade
play nobody.
Klubnik. I don't like him as a
No,
quarterback. I
no.
think he's too antsy as a quarterback for them to go long distance. Not just because, like you said, Sean, schedule in the ACC, man, they ain't playing nobody. They don't get to the probably championship. I think Miami and Clemson's gonna be there, and I think Miami can really dog walk Clemson.
Yeah.
I really think
Same
Miami
way
can
Georgia
dog
did.
walk
Same way
Clemson.
Georgia did.
So I'm like, I think when Clemson go up against a heavy hitter team, even a team like South Carolina, I think they'll get exposed. I think especially the offense. I don't think the offense is as good as it seemed that last night. So I'm like, I think ACC kind of fluffs them a little bit. But for a lot of teams in the SEC, man, they got to look at identity, man. We got to look at who we actually are
Hmm.
and how we're going to win these
Yeah.
games. Because some of these games are gritty.
Hey, these
Yeah.
schedules are crazy. Look at the schedule. You pick any SEC team right now, contender or
Hmm.
not. Look at the schedules. What they got
You got
remaining.
teams on all of these schedules that you were giving gimme wins to a lot of these teams that you looking at them now like, oh yeah, this about to be a fight a lot of these teams about to get into. But it's interesting because there's a lot of teams also, and I'm not trying to expand on it or they make this carry on any longer than it needs to, but it's like a lot of these are matchups we wouldn't see on a normal basis. Of course, you got Bama, Vandy, and stuff like that, but Ole Miss and South Carolina hadn't played each other in almost 4 years. You look at
I want to say the last time they
Tennessee,
played without an upset, South Carolina.
what?
Last time Vandy, not like Vandy, South Carolina, Ole Miss played.
No, no,
Oh,
no, no. So the last time we played was in 2020 with Will Muschamp, and the game he got fired was the Ole Miss game where Lane
okay,
threw his
what about the
clipboard in
one
the
where like
air.
Connor Shaw and them boys were? I want to say like Ole Miss was like ranked like number 4 or something.
That was the birth of Sandstorm. So that was in 2009. That was in 2009. And they came here and we beat them. That was the last time they came to Columbia. So they've never been to Columbia outside of that game. And then we beat them in 2018 where they tried to kick the ball or squib kick it away from Debo Samuel and he picked it up, dropped it, and still ran it for a touchdown. And Brian Edwards caught the ball on the sideline, slipped off somebody. We dog walked them that game when they had Tiamu, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Yeah, I know it.
Jordan. Yeah, so they had him, and then we played him in 2020, the infamous Lane throwing his clipboard in the air, the length of a football field, and all that kind of nonsense. And then this game here. Um, yeah, it just seems like a lot of these teams, you don't see them play a lot, and that's what I'm enjoying most about it. About these schedules and stuff like that. So it's real interesting to keep an eye on these schedules and how they match up because it's like you're walking into these games, you'd be like, hey, we hadn't seen this team in 4 or 5 years, and now we don't know nothing about the environments, especially if it's your first time going to these environments. So I mean, like I said, it's super interesting. Even the Kentucky Ole Miss game was interesting to me because it was Kentucky going to Ole Miss. Seeing that matchup in Ole Miss is like is new. It's new age college football, Sean, like you were talking
Right.
about.
Yep. And listen, I don't want to be like all over the place here, but I'm this is just on my heart to say. We haven't talked much about the Big 12, and there's not much to talk about for real. But I'm gonna say, I know we got our preview coming up, but I'm gonna go ahead and preview the preview.
Uh-huh.
Colorado, Kansas State is going to
Yeah.
be something we got to talk about going into
Mhm.
next week because I honestly believe the winner of this game
Got a chance.
potentially gets a driver's seat in the Big 12. And does it mean that Dion has a chance to make it to the playoffs if they beat Kansas State? Y'all ain't got an answer right now, but you can if you want to. But I'm just saying, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at Colorado's schedule. I'm like, wait a minute now. Wait a daggum minute. This
So
may be the toughest game left on their schedule.
Yeah.
And if they beat Kansas State, can they make it? Can they make it? And Lord, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but Lord, can they make it? I don't think they're gonna get by them, but if they do, Lord help, wait for this train.
I think Colorado actually gonna whoop them. I think it's
Yeah.
a whooping set for Kansas State. I think we look at this defense. This defense is opportunistic. They know how to get off the field on big time plays. And I think the turnover one or two that might happen on Colorado's favor, I think could be the game breaking moment like that. And I think that teams have yet figured out really how to consistently score on Colorado yet. I think you really got to go back to Nebraska and say Nebraska was just a better built team than Colorado. They had
At that time.
yeah, they had all the ingredients to say this is how we figure this out. But that game right there, Colorado learned so much from that game right there. They got the atmosphere. So to me, Colorado's side is all about their offensive line. What type of offensive line is going to show up to the game? Because if you give Shedeur time to sit back in that pocket and let that ball go, he's going to pick apart any team you put against him. I'm sorry, he's that type of quarterback. He's that type of talent. He's that type of guy. And you give a guy like Travis Hunt out there who can go and make him plays, man. Kansas State, I promise you this. I'll say this right here, and I'm not going to get too deep in it. I promise you, 150%. Colorado is way less worried about Kansas State than Kansas State is worried about Colorado.
I believe that.
At 10%. So the swag and the atmosphere is going to be at that game. Ooh, we're going to have an upset alert.
Hey, this is a big
alert.
This is a big one that actually has playoff implications. This is honestly, in my opinion, everything going on in the SEC right now, it's going to play itself out. Yeah. This is the Big 12 first big matchup that actually has playoff implications, if you ask me. And I'm just curious as to whether or not Deion going to have his squad ready for this, because this is the biggest game of Deion Sanders' coaching career.
110%. And then, to me, this is what the 12-team playoff is about. Because the 12-team playoff to me wasn't about the top 6 teams to me. There's going to be teams that get in there, that should get in there. But to me, it's about those teams. Like, I was talking with my friend group chat last night, like Boise State, with their running back, like, when they get a big, like Kansas State. And I know there's a team that from the Big 12 that's going to get in. But there's like, this is your opportunity to stamp who you are, to prove. You don't get too many opportunities. You maybe get 1 or 2 a year to say who you are. Ohio State with the Big 10. Y'all probably going to get 2, maybe 3 teams to slide in there. Yeah. SEC, 2, maybe 3 teams to slide in there for real, for real. But these other guys is out there that's really fighting for their lives. That, man, this is what this college ball is about. So the atmosphere is gonna be at that game. I don't care where you at. You better have some type of eye. Whether you got one good eye or one lazy eye, have one of them things on this game so you can focus on what's happening.
I'm watching it from beginning to end. This is one I am definitely dialed in on. But we'll talk more about this game in our preview. But I just had to I had to throw it out there because it's already on my radar as a huge game next week.
And I know we're running way longer than we thought, but last thing, the previews of next week. Do y'all got any games that y'all think will be top tier games, or like?
There's plenty of them. This is the biggest weekend in college football. You got Ohio State going to Oregon is going to be crazy.
Y'all put them on upset alert? I don't think Oregon got what it takes. I think Ohio State looking.
The problem is you on the road. And I don't know what Ohio State is. I don't think anybody has watched an Ohio State game this year outside of Ohio State.
I watched the game.
You watched a game.
I watched the game.
Because I'm telling you right now.
I think to me, their weakest point of their team is their quarterback.
Okay, I agree. They don't have that.
Is he truly tested? Because he's got 6 stars everywhere you look on the team, and the defense is full of 10 stars everywhere on the field. So it's like, as long as you execute the game plan, you're gonna be in every single game. To me, when you gotta really win a game, I look at that quarterback and say, do you have it? And there's a look on that face that you know if he got it or not. And
Hey, another game that's coming this weekend is the rivalry. It's rivalry weekend for Texas. It's Texas, Oklahoma. Red River rivalries this weekend.
Man, no problem for Texas. No problem for Texas.
Yeah, I don't think
you say that. People, no. People say that. There is not, in the last 4 Texas head coaches, not one of them has a winning record against Oklahoma. Not one of them.
I'll tell you this.
It's a different.
I'll tell you this right here. The only team that can beat Texas is Texas. It might happen against Oklahoma, but Texas is the only team that can beat them. I don't care which quarterback they throw in there. They got all the tools in the toolbox to go in there and whoop Oklahoma's butt. Oklahoma, to me, doesn't have their own answer to their identity yet to go up against a team like this. Like, to me, when you don't know who you truly are, I'm second guessing my play calling.
Yeah.
when a guy across me that's 300 pounds that's gonna whoop my ass if I ain't ready, you better know what you about to do. So Oklahoma coming off a bye, man.
Hey,
That fourth quarter against Auburn, I was like, ah, man, y'all might got the answer, but if you ain't got your quarterback answer yet, no, sir. No, sir.
No.
I got like a 3 touchdown difference. And
we'll
I'm
see
Hey,
what
like,
the line is. The line out. The line should be out by now. Let
I
me
don't know,
go ahead,
but
Sean.
I bet it's at least 21.
I'm gonna go look at the
hey,
line. Go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
but no, listen, check it out. Okay, speaking of we didn't talk about Auburn, Georgia, and there's not much to talk about there really, but what I will say is I thought Hugh Freeze was gonna come out with a game plan that was gonna keep Auburn in the game, and he kind of did. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I'm really questioning how good Georgia really is. We're gonna find out more because their schedule gets real tough too here. But let's talk about. Hey, we ain't got to talk about it. But for me, Ole Miss LSU is going to be a game.
Hey, I got LSU. I got LSU walking out one barely. I think it's gonna be an
Man,
offensive showcase.
listen, they
You got more
both.
offensive touchdowns. If you want to throw some money on some prize pick money, LSU receivers and Ole Miss receivers right there. They're gonna score points. I promise you that.
Hey, that's gonna be a fun game. And the winner of that game, I think, if I'm looking at the SEC as it was back in the day, I'm saying back in the day, like last year, East in terms of East and West, the winner of that game, based on how the season's going right now, kind of controls the West. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? And I ain't talking about Bama in this equation. This is a big game, two heavyweights going at it, two different kind of styles a little bit. Man, I'm really looking forward to this game.
I think LSU found their identity at the right time. They got that freshman running back who's back there that's
Yeah.
really turning up. They got a quarterback who I think has really know what he's trying to do on every possession. He's like, I know exactly what needs to be done, where this ball's gonna go. I think if they get out their ego way and just play ball, man, I think they can go down there and get some big time wins. Now their season is up to them. I don't think they found all the answers on their defense yet, but they season's up to them for LSU. Ole Miss, I don't know what to predict for
They
them.
ain't as good as
I
people
don't
is.
know what to
People
predict.
looking
It's
at their
Lane Kiffin.
scores. People looking at their scores and thinking they good. Seeing them in person, they not that good. And this damn, I ain't gonna go on no rant. This faking injuries nonsense that they got going on. I have never been to a football game and seen the type of foolishness I saw coming from that sideline with injuries. And it made and they harped on it in the press conference after the game. But I'm talking about they walk fine. They'll get up after a play, they walk in. Anytime a team gets a first down or a gain of 15 or more,
They
somebody going
drop.
and it's number 89. He did it 5 times and came back in the game the very next play. He did it 5 times in a row. Anytime you get a first down or a gain of more than 15 yards, he go down or somebody else does. No problem on offense. You'll never see an offensive player go down and do that mess. But oh man, I want to see if they do this mess at LSU. I want to see because
They'll do it.
Same time for South Carolina, we got to get reins on Sellers. We got to figure out how to
he
really get.
not healthy. He not healthy.
But I know he's
They
not
don't
healthy,
believe
but at
in
the
him.
same time, he don't feel confident.
Yes,
So I'm like, we got to figure out how to rein all that in. Whether that's to let him sit until he's healthy and just
you
say,
got. I think you got
whenever
to
we've
because
seen enough this year, freshman year, we've seen enough from you.
when he's healthy
Get you
enough,
right.
he can play like he played against LSU, where he's making play. He wants to go out and make plays. When he's not healthy, you've seen it. We saw it some when he played a little bit versus Kentucky at the night game last season when we still had Spencer and he came in the game. We had it that first drive in the second half against LSU after he twisted that ankle and he refused to keep the ball and he would have had the whole sideline to take off with. He's a completely different person when he's hurt. And I think they rushed him out there. They said, "Hey, this is just this that kind of game. We got to have him out there. We just gonna put him out there." And if in person, it just looked like he wasn't mentally like ready to be out there.
And
And
if we know we're gonna do that, though, we got to put a game plan that's gonna protect our quarterback and make him feel
right,
confident that I'm out here. I
right,
just can't be like, let's go, let's let the playbook wide open with a hurt
yeah.
quarterback, seeing what he can do. He's not that type of guy. He's
I'm
like,
gonna
all
get
right,
into
cool. If
them
he
later
stays in
because
reserve, we're gonna really use him as a pump fake more than we're
yeah,
gonna use him as a you make decision making plays. I just look, they show his face so much time. I don't know, you couldn't see because you was at the game, van. They show
yeah.
his blatant face so many times in that game. I was like, he looks one, exhausted. Two,
Yeah,
like I don't know what they even telling me. And three, I don't know what I'm seeing on the field.
I
To where
think it was
you really
so I
can't
think
understand like how to make the plays that you need to make. Because the moments were there. I feel like the
yeah,
moments
yeah, yeah.
were there, but I feel like it just wasn't capitalized on, which is
Yeah, I think what happened was it's coaching, and I've been giving Dow Loggins praise this whole season. This is the best play calling I've seen him call this year, based off of last year and this year. Last year, even when he had Spencer, it just looked like he was lost in some moments. But every game in this, even the Old Dominion game, the players are the ones who came out and said, "Yeah, it was just nerves, but we calmed down, we got that win." But ever since then, he's been calling a very good game. I don't know what the heck was going on against Ole Miss. He refused to throw the ball more than seven. Our longest attempt was 17 yards down the field. And the way you beat Ole Miss in this Ole Miss defense is you gotta throw the ball down the field. Their secondary is not good. The one time we did throw the ball down the field, we got what we wanted. It was a penalty. They are the most penalized team with their secondary in the country. They are going to either hold you or they're going to give up a big play, and they're going to do it every time. You cannot run the ball without having to pass the ball because they're made, their front seven is made to stop you from running the ball. That's what they want to do. So you can't all this motion crap that we were seeing at the game and then run the ball up the middle, and then Rocket was not healthy, so he was out the whole second half. So you got a 180-pound running back, and you, hey, we want you to just run it up the middle. Go try to run between tackles. It's not gonna work. It didn't make no sense from a play calling aspect of it. But I feel like once you saw I feel like it was more on the coaches because you come out the first drive, and what gave a telltale sign to me that the coaches didn't believe that they were ready for this game is in your first drive at your 35, you go for it on fourth down with a sneak run. You handed Ole Miss 14 points before the game even got started. And then you put two quarterbacks in there with Robbie Ashford in on your next drive and try to do some crazy triple option with him and Lenore in at the same time, and he fumbles the ball. So you give him right back to him. That led to the second touchdown. So I'm telling you, you dug yourself in a hole. And when you come into a game and you're already pulling out all these tricks and gadget stuff from the beginning of the game, it lets me know that you don't believe in your game plan and you don't believe in what you got to go win this football game. Because you ain't seen none of that when they played LSU at home. They came out and played straight up and down smash mouth football. We read simple run plays, simple pass plays. We ain't do nothing extra in that first half against LSU. Same thing versus Kentucky. It was the exact same thing. And this is the first game where I just saw, and you could just tell the feeling of it from the very jump of the game was like, they don't believe they can compete. They got to feel like they got to come out with just trick stuff out the jump to try to win this game because they don't believe that their players can do it. And I believe we had the team to do it. But if Lenoris is not healthy, you got to play Robbie Ashford. And I feel like you called a perfect game with Robbie, albeit it was Akron, but I've never seen him, the plays they called for him fit what he does best the entirety of that football game. And I've watched that game twice now. I was at that game. You had him use his feet, get him comfortable, and then it was little short stuff to get him comfortable with his arm. And then he started hitting plays down the field because he was comfortable with throwing the ball at that point. It's the same thing with going to Bama. If you're going to Bama and Lenoris looks like he looks this past week, you can't put him out there because you look even worse with Lenoris out there because he looks scared to do anything. And it's not, I don't believe it's his fault. He's a young kid, he's hurt, he wants to protect himself. So when he's calling hype, he's thinking on his mind, I don't want to get my ankle hurt. So my eyes aren't looking down the field. I'm looking at where the rush is coming from so I don't get hit and get my ankle twisted up on. And the same thing happened at halftime when we had the ball
right.
at half. He got tackled at half, went down. Immediately, the first thing he did was grab his ankle. And then you see him yelling at himself, slamming his helmet down, all of this, limping off the field. Like he's not healthy. He's not ready 100% to play the game. And I think he's one of those players that where he has to be 100% before he feels comfortable to be out there. So you got to go with Robbie if he's not 100% going into this Bama week. And we'll get into the next week game and all that. That's just my spill. Um, I've let that game go. It's on my mind. Hey, it's been a weekend. When it comes to football, I'm over it. I'm done with it. I moved on to the next. So it is what it is. But going back to this line, hey, Texas is only a 14-point favorite against Oklahoma in the Red Bull
14.
Rob. 14, yeah. So it's interesting. And Ole Miss is actually opened as a 2-point favorite at LSU. I think they're gonna get smoked, but like I said, we'll get into that later this week to begin with also. So
True. We got a lot to touch this week. Got a lot to touch on.
we got a lot to touch on. Yeah, it's gonna be some videos, man. Hey, y'all, make sure y'all stay tuned. It's gonna be some content every single day.
Watch out.
If we get this thing recorded, we about to be shooting this stuff out this week because it's the biggest week and biggest weekend of the season coming up, in my opinion, for everybody. I think just top to bottom games. You can get on your couch on Saturday from the time noon to 11:45, whatever the night games are. Go, just sit in front of your TVs, get as many as you can, get your phone, get your laptop, get everything out, just cut every single game on and just get your popcorn ready because I think it's gonna be some showdowns in the making.
And I don't
Gonna
know
be
what
nice,
world y'all
man.
live in or what y'all got going on, but for some people it's a holiday weekend too. So hey, it's a long weekend. This is the time where you can get as drunk as you want to get watching these football games. I'm telling you, it's prime time drinking mode Saturday morning, starting at 9 a.m. from
Start in
college
the morning.
day.
If you ain't
College
drinking
game
by
day.
9 o'clock, you're wrong. You're
And
wrong
hey,
if you ain't
quick,
got a
quick
beer.
point, man. Nick Saban is prime time TV right
Oh
now.
yeah,
Prime time TV. Him and Pat McAfee
they
are pure
perfect.
gold together, man. Bet on
Yeah,
them. I promise you get your money back.
yeah, yeah,
No
yeah, yeah.
doubt.
Well, hey, thank everybody for tuning in. We ran a little long, but hey, it is what it is. We get to yapping, we get to talking. It's all good content. Hey, go ahead and subscribe, hit that bell. Like I said, this week we have a ton of content coming out, tons of analysis, tons of breakdowns. Our predictions will come out. Get with us then.